Reactions 1 week after the last one, Mod Pie, and following up from Mod Pie, I have the one and only Mod Ramen joining me. Hi, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, I have to ask first of all, how's the new place? Because obviously I know you've been documenting your little adventures. How is it?
It's good. I went from living in one place. Well, when I moved to Cambridge, I found one room and I kind of lived there ever. So 6.5 years, the same four walls. And obviously cycling and housemates over them years. But it's good to live alone.
Well, yeah, I was one of them.
Yeah,
I was there for 2 years. So yeah,
yeah.
I could totally sympathise and understand. So fair play to you. I'm glad that it seems like you've moved to a place you're happy with now. It's good.
I'm happy. Things are good. Life is great.
Awesome. Right. So, for those of you just joining in and just wondering how these kind of streams work, the gist of it is, or those of you watching on YouTube, that is, that I always like to talk about and dive into the stories of the person I'm talking to. So, in the first stream I tried it with Mod Shogun, and we did it with Mod Pie. Now we have Mod Ramen. So, we're going to talk about Mod Ramen's stories and how he ended up getting to Jagex, how he started out in QA, and how he went from QA to a content developer, and of course how he created stuff such as AOD, Solak, Merifel, and others along the way. Probably Landing K will come up as well, wouldn't surprise me. We kind of have to start it from the beginning then, Raman. So, at any point, you can pick at any point you want to start with, but how did, I guess, first of all, you get into RuneScape? Because presumably you played RuneScape before going to Jagex, correct?
Yeah. So I found RuneScape as a lot of most people did through miniclip.com. Obviously, way back in the time that was popping, it was kind of the choice of the path and the road, whether you pick Club Penguin or RuneScape. And thankfully, I clicked RuneScape. And it kind of just I found it at the time, played it for a little while, and then kind of dropped off until I moved to secondary school, where I met a guy um, in one of our ICT classes who was still playing RuneScape. He kind of reintroduced me, and then from there, at home we weren't really allowed internet. Like we weren't allowed on the internet, so it was always a struggle to try and play RuneScape because obviously it was blocked at British schools. You wouldn't be able to get on through. You wouldn't be able to install Java. So it was always a struggle, and Mum would let her wouldn't let us play RuneScape because mothers always give that whole RuneScape gives the computer viruses and we just weren't really allowed the internet, so I had to come up with loads of crafty methods of waiting for. So Mum would always lock the PC screen, so I would screenshot the lock screen, open up a PowerPoint presentation, paste it in, put it into PowerPoint mode. So whenever she glanced at the
Oh,
PC before leaving, it would look like it was locked, but it wasn't.
that's
I just did like
superb. Oh, I
did
absolutely
like
love that.
a super 10 minutes of RuneScape, which is cool. And then I started getting smart. Like Windows 7 had this thing where you could copy the Wi-Fi settings to a USB, and then I would take upstairs to my own PC, and it was just plain text. So I started getting a bit but yeah, I on and off RuneScape over the years, and then it got to the point where I was in high school. I did my AS levels, and I didn't realize you had to go back and roll for A levels. So I rocked up first day of A levels, and they were like, "Yeah, you don't go here anymore." Um, so kind of went home, turned around to my mum. I was like, "Look, not at school anymore." And God knows, the stress I kind of put her through. Spent a year upstairs in my room doing nothing, just playing RuneScape, and she always kind of pushed me to find a job or to, not sit in my room and play RuneScape. And it just so happened that obviously that this was the point where Discord wasn't really a thing. It was mostly Skype and it was TeamSpeak, and we had a big TeamSpeak. There were some JMods in every now and then. Dardan, Dardan and Miss Mod Slayer were on Discord TeamSpeak, and she told him to apply, for a QA position. I was in the channel and I kind of overheard and ended up applying for it myself. First job I had ever applied for. Had never really been out of Cambridge, and they put me through to the interview stage. Sister had to accompany me on the train because
Oh, bless you.
um, and she dropped me up in Cambridge, did my interview, and then 3 weeks later, I got a phone call of them offering me the job, which was mind blowing considering this is the first interview I've done, the first job I had ever applied for. And they said, "Oh, when can you start?" And me not knowing the real world and how it works, and I've got to go up there and find a place to live. I was like, Monday. Uh, give us a week. And then Mod Slayer, she put me up for a week. She put me up for a month. Eventually, I found a place and started my career in the games industry as a QA tester.
Do you remember who you interviewed with?
Um, Slayer was in the interview, and a fellow called Ingo.
Okay.
It was like the morning was the interview, and then you had to do a playthrough request, which had loads of in it, but bugs they put in themselves. So they have a spreadsheet.
Gotcha. Can you have you got a stand microphone? Just checking, Zoran.
Do
Are you able to
yeah,
bring it a tad closer, if that's okay? It's only because it's like not much, but it cuts off just a little bit sometimes.
no worries.
So talking about, so actually, I believe when you mentioned they were playing for request, I'm pretty sure that was done as part of a Roomfest test a few years ago. I believe, is that
Yeah, that
correct?
was the trial and the quest is a lot different now. So the
Yeah, of
quest
course.
I played through was the one of the pirate ones, the one where you have to repair the ship. Um, yeah, I don't remember it.
Someone in the chat will get us on that one. It's fine. Can you remember anything you found that was like a cabin fever? Says Shogun.
There was a point in the quest where you could not proceed, and you part of the test and the trial is getting up and asking for help. Um, and that was part of it, and I did that. So good much.
Nice.
As far as I'm aware, I did well. Clearly,
Well, I was gonna say yeah because you're still there, so yeah, you obviously did. So obviously you mentioned yeah you were in to go, you got started on that Monday, but then of course Slayer put you up in accommodation for a month. So how was it initially settling into obviously your first job with Jagex as QA? How was that initial onboarding?
so I because I never went to university, I didn't really get the social skills of kind of It sounds
Same.
sounds strange, but you kind of know what I went through. Like I didn't really have the social skills of interacting with people or understanding kind of social norms. Um, so at the start, it was pretty difficult. But there were a couple people who already worked at Jagex that I knew or knew through RuneScape. We kind of formed a friend circle, and still hang Ryan, all them to today. But it was a struggle at kind of just getting to the grips with the real world, moving up with nothing but kind of a suitcase of clothes, computer. It was a struggle, but jumping into a massive challenge,
Yeah.
learning a whole new career, um, plus it being RuneScape, kind of lended itself to it being fun and a um, it wasn't without its
Yeah, I mean, if I think about like when I first started, because obviously I lived in a hotel for 2 months when I moved to Cambridge. I'd never moved out of Wales or anywhere in my life. That was the first time I ever went anywhere for my first job. I went to Jagex, was there for a month. Was only meant to be there for a month, and then was kept in a hotel for another month. But in that time, it was like I was very hesitant to kind of like as you mentioned like the social norms and stuff. I was very guarded, I guess, and kind of kept to
yeah.
myself.
A lot of people learn these things through university.
Yeah.
I think if a lot of people who miss that, it ends up being, and it depends how social you were, kind of. But obviously, we're RuneScape players. We kind of did nothing but and play RuneScape, or in your case, Gears of War or Call of
Mm.
Duty, whatever it is you were playing. Most of our interaction with people was through Skype or TeamSpeak. But
Yeah, Yeah, so I mean, let's talk about, I guess, first project. Like, can you remember your first project you were assigned to in QA?
The first project I worked on was Death of Chivalry by Mod
Oh,
Stew.
nice.
Yeah, Death of Chivalry by Mod Stew, and that was Ryan and I who were working on that. We kind of worked in QA sub team, so it was myself, Mod Slayer, Mod Ryan, and another one who I can't really remember. But Death of Chivalry was my first one. It was an awesome quest, went down well. Feedback it.
So yeah, someone said, how do you get the confidence to make a case to get hired? So obviously, I guess when you first decided to apply, where did you get the confidence to do it?
Well, realistically, it was I knew I had to do something with my life, and getting a job, which is basically testing RuneScape or playing RuneScape in quotation marks all day, sounded kind of perfect.
Mm.
I wouldn't say it was confidence; it was more just I had to sort, and that point I decided to take the step. Like, let's say I had taken the step. I believe like fully in the button effect. Let's say I had listened to my mom and I had gone to various places to hand in my CV. How it works anymore, Mom, if you're listening.
One sec,
Yeah.
Carl. Sorry, one second. Do you mind doing me a favor? Can you go into your
So,
voice? Can you go into your voice settings on Discord for me?
yeah.
Sorry. Are you able to check and your voice sensitivity and then tweak that if possible?
I'll just bring down the input sensitivity.
Yeah, just so we pick up more.
Done.
There we go, which we all agree.
Done.
But yes, you were apologising to your mum as you were.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like let's say I had got a job at Halfords. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't have been on TeamSpeak at that point, and my life could be totally different. So thankful for being lazy at the time. But it wasn't really confidence. It was just a realization or an opportunity presented itself, and I kind of just went for it.
Awesome. So, excuse me, excuse me, words. Death of Chivalry, 2013 release, I believe.
Yeah.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, you moved on to Missing Presumed Death after that, was that correct?
Whoa, no, no, no. I didn't
Oh,
work
okay.
on this. I moved on to the Ascension dungeon.
Oh, man,
Um,
I'm going to do the wiki a
I got
favour
a,
here
I got
because
a,
they are run. Let me update your page.
I got a, I got a funny story about
About the Ascension
Ascension.
Dungeons? Oh.
Yeah, because so can I tell this story?
Oh, I love this.
Um, yeah, so because the Ascension crossbows used a dragon crossbow, I thought I was super smart by buying two of every single dragon weapon in the game to mask the fact I was also buying dragon crossbows.
Oh, you did
But no,
not.
but I got pulled up on it, and that was a big no.
Wow, okay. Oh, well, first of all,
Yeah.
respect for even sharing that. So, hey,
Well, like Jagex have a really good policy on that. Like there is no insider cheating, which is good.
fair. So, obviously, Ascension Dungeon. So you went from questing. So first of all, if you can, explain the difference between Quest QA and, in the case of Ascension, PBM QA.
So Ascension Dungeon was testing Slayer creatures, testing a huge environment, and testing 6 bosses. Whereas a quest, you have something called variable states. So you've got state at which a quest is in. And then let's say I can talk to a guard at quest state 5, and then at quest state 10 it changes. Every time I go through a different quest state, I need to go back and talk to this guard and make sure like nothing breaks. It's difficult to explain. Quests, because there are so many different states of different things, you need to make sure everything kind of stays on one track, and you
Whoops.
can't jump back. Or you can't jump back and redo a certain part of the quest, which will unset your variable and then mess everything up. Whereas things like Slayer creatures and bosses, because they are very singular things, you just need to make sure that kind of fight works and nothing else, nothing combaty breaks. Um, been a while since I was in QA, so I think things are different.
Yeah.
Everything's different. Everything's different. Unfortunately for QA, they are unsung heroes. You don't get to see the work that they do because if you got to see the work that they did, then they weren't doing their job properly and things were slipping through. So they get the real, shit end of the stick because anything that does slip through, it gets blamed on them for missing. But because the consumer doesn't get to see the stuff that they did catch, um, it's unsung heroes.
Fair.
But I've
Is there
you know
any?
been
Go on.
been in it firsthand, and it feels rough, but you kind of got to take it as it comes.
I mean, I mean, story time on my end. Like, I've had countless conversations with QA people and the Jagex, past and present. Like at the time I was there, and the stuff that has happened, and I cannot begin to tell you personally, like when someone from QA has worked on a project and they feel happy they've managed to do as much as they can, and they're really happy with the bugs they found. Then there's one thing that gets through, and then that becomes a big deal that the community focuses on. Like it rips them to shreds. Like
Yeah,
they eat themselves up because of their passion for their work they've done. Like I've seen it with so many QA at Jagex, like, and I can sympathize immensely with it personally.
they're brilliant. They are a brilliant team. But it's the case in all games, unsung heroes, and they will always get the flack if something gets through. But
Hmm.
internally, we know the work they do, so that's what matters.
So, yeah, we come to the Ascension Dungeon. Couldn't even find my words then. Ascension Dungeon. So we had what was it, like six, seven bosses, wasn't it? Like how many was it?
Six,
Six
six,
bosses.
six bosses, yeah, and
How was that to do?
it was fun. Obviously, being a RuneScape player at the time, not that I'm not now, but being really invested and going home and playing, working on a piece of boss content. I say boss content, Slayer boss content at the time was super fun. That was done by Mod Doctor, and I believe Mod Ryan and Mod Giara also helped test it, which was it was a fun one because we were kind of testing around with the keys and then getting to test the bosses. And it was the first time working on something full because Death of Chivalry was already, I believe, part tested when we started. So it was nice to move on to that and get it from the fresh.
Fair. Oh, hi Ryan, sneaking into my stream. I see you.
Hmm.
Yeah. So into Ascension. I mean, is there anything story wise, obviously apart from the story you told us? Anything else on the story perspective from Ascension Dungeon that kind of stands out? Any little fun bugs or anything like that? If you can
Not
remember,
that
that is.
not that I can remember. I just remember it being like one of the most awesome looking pieces of content. Having that massive effigy of Guthix and all the dudes trying to bring Guthix back from the dead. I believe it is. It was a long time ago. Yeah, 7 years. So
So, just from a timeline perspective, just remind me here. When did you first start diving into content a little bit when it comes to RuneScape? Was it around this time or was it later? Just so I can kind of figure out when to bring it in.
later.
Okay. All right, we'll get to that then.
It was kind of 2014. So I joined in 2013, and then around 2014 is when we all kind of started to pick up a little bit of interest in code. I know AOD started in 2015, but as something else.
Can't wait to get
Um,
into the whole AOD story because you can
yeah.
only imagine it'll be good fun. Okay, so Ascension Dungeon. Can you remember what you moved on to after that?
No idea. I think I moved on to some Solomon projects
Okay.
temporarily, and then the next big thing I did after that was What Event 2,
Ooh, okay.
the Bird and the Beast. Yeah, it
It,
was What Event 2. That was the next bigger thing.
What I love
I
about these
worked on some.
streams is that I totally update like the mods pages on the wiki just because of my own fascination, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Oh, apparently Ryan's saying you've got two projects.
I've got two projects. Oh, what were they? because we must have worked on them together.
Yeah, presumably that's
Oh,
why you said it.
okay. He's gonna say Super September is one. Um, Super September. I don't know the other one. I don't know the other one.
We'll wait. We'll wait for Ryan to jump in with what it should
Uh,
be. Did you mention Owen?
yeah, that was the first one we ever
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
on. Yeah, Sero and Super September.
Okay, so Bird and the Beast will
Oh,
event. Oh,
and TLI like RuneScape
oh,
3
nice.
interface. Yeah,
Not a big update, you know. Just kind of changing the
yeah,
significance of the entire interface. And the other was the character creation screen.
yeah. I remember that, but yeah,
So is that the
yeah.
character creation screen that we see today? The current one?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So you see the avatar, and then obviously you customize everything.
yeah.
Nice.
Ryan's got a better memory than me, clearly.
Yeah. So, Will Event 2, I mean, I think it's safe to say, like, I wasn't around at the time, but from player perception, World Event 2 seems to be the favourite of the world events from that. How was it
Yeah,
testing, like, a mega event like that?
it was super exciting because of how successful World Event One was, and the whole this time it was open world PvP, which was stressful to test. You know, we're turning PvP on in Falador, which is kind of crazy. Um, it was just fun working with the big gods. There was the caravans. There was the different tiers of rewards, and obviously the new abilities. Sacrifice, transfigure. I think it was transfigure, sacrifice, devotion, and transfigure. I believe.
I believe Transfigure,
Um,
yeah, rings a bell to me, I think so.
yeah, I believe it's transfigure. Um, yeah, testing open world PvP was the bigger test of that. And there were loads of modules involved because it was the whole you side of Armadillo or you side with Bandos, and I think Armadillo stomped. Yeah, Armadillo stomped. Obviously, Bandos is dead. Spoilers. Um, yeah, and testing the rubber banding for that, but it was pretty obvious by day one, by the amount of lead that Armadillo had, that she was gonna.
Was there a cutscene for Bandos' dying? Was there?
Yes,
Okay, was
yes,
there one
yes.
made for Armadil?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, there wasn't because by the time by the time we were like 3 days in, it was clear. Um, had there been a turnaround at the end, we would have been in a little bit of trouble, but it was obvious.
Gotcha.
It was storyboarded. Both sides were storyboarded.
Nice. Maybe one day we'll hear about what the Armadillo death may have been like. Who knows? MS
Probably
Paint
the same.
slideshow for a bird falling out of the sky. Nice. Okay, what I went to, and then where did you go next, project wise?
Just bounced around. So 2014 would have taken me to Araxor.
Oh, here we go.
So this Araxor was the first project I kind of had on my own.
And
Um,
when you say that, you mean as a QA, correct?
as a QA, it
Yep.
was Chris and I. And that was also my first time working with Chris, who I if anyone kind of knows me, they know I look up to Chris L a lot. Like a lot of his updates inspired me to become a content developer, to make some of the things I've made. And when I was a player, like his updates were my favorite. So it was very exciting to be working with this, legend that I've always looked up to, especially on a boss. And Araxor turned out to be something special, which I'm super happy with. I got to do add some of my first things to RuneScape through that. I did some of the pet chat for Lana, Bill, Pete, which are just Spider-Man references, Arrow, Archer references. It was good fun. And then on launch, yeah, Araxor went super well. We actually did the. It was the first. We weren't live streaming
I was gonna say, didn't you
as
do a
much.
preview stream
We did a
back then?
preview stream.
Yeah.
Chris turned around because we had never really done RuneScape streams. I believe the first. This might have been one of the first ones because we had Simon and James from RuneShark. They had just joined. They were setting things up, and Chris turned around to me and was like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. We'll only have 2K viewers." So I was like, "Cool." It was a Saturday. A couple of us came in, and we were setting up the stream, and it went 2K, 3K, 4K, 7K, and it kept
Wow.
climbing 10K, and then we hit 15K, and I was mortified. I didn't really know what to do. So once the stream turned on, obviously you know how Twitch chat can be. They can be toxic. Sometimes they can be lovely. Sometimes, but obviously this being my first time on stream, I'm sitting there reading the comments. They're all saying about
Oh
me.
man.
I've just got this. I'm just staring at the chat. And they ended up screenshotting my face and then putting it on Twitter with like the caption, "Did I leave the stove on? Did I forget to let the dog out?"
Has anyone
Um,
got this? I need to see this.
I'm pretty sure if you just Google, and you're going to hear my keyboard, so I
That's fine.
apologize. RuneScape
That mechanical keyboard.
Mod Ramen stove, it might come up.
What's ramen
No,
stove?
it's gone, thankfully.
Someone's got to find it. Come on, people.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it was like, did I leave the stove on? Did I forget to let the dog out? And I was mortified. So I didn't go on stream for a while, but it was fun. It was good. It was nice to be able to show things off in game like we did, and then Mod Ryan, Mod Oliver, Mod Ollie, and Mod Chriselle then went on to do an even better stream with Virago Hard Mode, where they had him in game. They turned it on in game, and they also were able to use some of Virago's abilities against players in the Grand Exchange, which was
wow,
super cool.
that's pretty badass.
It was cool. It was really cool.
So,
And
Arax,
then,
sorry, I just want to go back quickly to Araxo, if possible.
cool.
So with obviously Araxo, we, obviously just so people are aware, in case they weren't playing back then, it had three phases back then. Sorry, three paths back then. Is that correct? They
Yeah,
weren't
yeah.
added. It came with three paths.
It came with 3 paths. Yeah.
So, what were the reactions on day one, if you can remember? Just like, because presumably you were watching the feedback and the streams and the videos. How is it all going on day one?
People got to grips with it fairly quickly. There wasn't the whole fail, learn, finally get the kill. I believe Hoob, someone was the first person to get it, and they did it on their first run just because of the level that Araxo was. It wasn't an in-game boss. But people learning different things, and then obviously once we hit like day 2, the path switched up. So people had more things to learn, and then once the path switched again, there was a different set of abilities because of how the tunnels change. It went well. Super happy with it. I liked the way the drop system went. So people weren't able to make a profit until the final tunnel was revealed because you had to build the stick. And even if you got a hilt, you would need the stick to make the weapon, and then sell that on for profit. And actually, it was one of our friends who I believe got the first scythe in the game and ended up selling it for max cash,
Oh wow.
um, which is cool. It's always cool on release days where you see what the first weapon goes for, and it's always something crazy, something stupid.
Any fun stories during Araxo's development you can remember?
So, because of the way sometimes we do our testing, we usually just have these things called a debug proc, where you just spawn the boss on the base world and clear up any bosses that were already spawned on the base world. And Mod Dean was running through on the other side of the office, he's using my test world, and I'm on the other side of the office testing. But he started up a fight, and he's going through it, and he's got the furthest anyone has. He's on the final phase. And me on the other side run the debug proc to spawn my boss, but ended up deleting his. All of a sudden, I hear this scream. He slams his keyboard and comes charging towards me. He's like, he went ballistic. But obviously it's Dean, so it's just a fun loving ballistic.
Yeah, it's his passion, right? So yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. I think he did end up getting the first kill, but that was a funny one. When you see if you've seen Dean rage, times it by two. It was funny.
I mean, not to put Dean in it, but I'm pretty sure that the clip still exists of I think he's playing a quest and something happens and he completely loses it. I
Yeah,
can't remember specifically what it was, but I mean, I've seen it only because I only know of his rage because of that clip. So I can only imagine what it would have been like during that. Oh dear. Oh,
yeah,
sheep
it was good.
herder. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what it was apparently.
but,
Go on.
there are plenty of other stories. I just don't remember much of them. This was actually a point at Jagex where, or my time at Jagex, where things were shaky. We're still getting to grips with things. Obviously, 2014, so it hadn't been had only just been there about a year now. But things worked out.
Damn right.
Let's say.
All right. After Raxor, can you remember where you moved on to next? Oh, no. So just before we do that, Ryan said apparently you missed out on a god boss in between this time.
A god
That's
boss.
what he said in chat.
Oh, Virago. I didn't really work on Virago. I helped playtest it, and that I remember. I will never forget this day. It was the first time Chriselle ever spoke to me. Um, so it was called Boss Two at the time. We every Thursday he would send it round as a quick little playtest, and then at this point it was just a blown up Living Rock Patriarch, and we had just done a full playthrough, and then he turns to me. I was like, "You, what do you think?" And I just melt. Um, it's perfect, Chris. It's lovely. It's great. But yeah, it wasn't part of the core testing team, but did take part in playtests, which
Gotcha.
was it was fun. It was some of my best memories at Jagex for sure.
Awesome. So, if I'm correct, you couldn't remember what you moved on to after Raxor. Is that correct?
Honestly, after Araxor, things kind of just have melted into one. I know I worked on things like Children of Ma, uh,
We're
um,
not going to talk about raids.
Raids. Yep, Raids. That
Let's
was
let's
July
talk about.
2015.
Yeah, there you go. Spot on. Let's talk about Mazcab and raids. So,
Yeah, so we did after Araxor. It was, I believe, it was on to Tusker World Event,
ah,
then Mazcab and Raids. Yeah, yeah,
So
that
Ryan
was
just said
it.
in chat, Kyle actually said when testing Virago, maybe I could bomb tank if I stand at the back with a shield.
So no, Ryan, I was the first person to actually bomb tank, which was like before, bomb tanking was never really a thing. I just said, look, because I can stand at the back and circle the bombs and just rotate defensive abilities. Essentially, I was the first ever bomb tank, the
Mm,
OG. And when we did it in live on release, I was the bomb tank, which was fun.
nice. Um, I'm
Oh, fun
showing.
fact about Virago:
Oh yeah, go on.
we got the first Vitalis in
I was
game.
gonna say, I'm pretty sure I know who got it, but is he okay with us saying it?
Mod Harrison.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Harrison was the Harrison
Mod
of all people was
Harrison
first
now.
person
Yeah.
to get it, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. He like we had not told anyone what it was. So on TeamSpeak, when he was like Ancient Summoning Stone, we were like the people who knew, we were freaking out. It was kind of crazy, kind of crazy.
That's amazing. So I have to come over to Mazcab first of all. So obviously, we'll get to raids in just a minute, but Mazcab, completely new region, completely new race of characters, as it were, for RuneScape. So
Yeah,
how was it kind of being on that project?
super fun. Obviously getting to work on more bosses, which has always been my passion. And then getting to also work with Deg and Chriselle at the same time
Oh
was
God, can you
it was
imagine?
this was at the point where we kind of had the dream team in the office. We were knocking projects out, we were having fun. We were just kind of it was lively in the corner. We would say stupid things, make stupid noises. Um, Deg would say stupid things always. But working on the next tier of bossing and designing rewards. I believe this is where Onslaught came from. So designing things like Onslaught was awesome. That was the one of the first things I properly designed, based off of other games like World of Warcraft, where when you're starting off on a boss, a frost mage or a fire mage would burn everything. They would use absolutely all their cooldowns to open, which is what I wanted Onslaught to be. So it was fun designing abilities. It was fun testing the bosses, running playtests, seeing the progression of Durzag was awesome. And then Yakamaru kind of was being worked on, and then Chris kind of came in and made it in a week, which was crazy.
And this is when obviously he was coming towards his end, right? He was on. I think
Yes,
he was coming
so
towards the end
he
of his tenure.
wasn't. Unfortunately, he wasn't there on day of release. I believe he extended his leaving by a week or something. But it was a very sad period. Obviously, Chris leaving. He had, was this 2015.
It was
So at
2000,
this
yeah.
point, at this point, tap was already a thing, and he had already spent a little bit of time teaching me um, how to code, which is cool. So this is at the point where tap has kind of just started, and people were dabbling in code. Let's say the Ninja team had already sparked up at this point, which is originally the team I wanted to be on. But I guess a blessing in disguise being put with Chris and Deg. I believe Deg got moved to us because he was a little wild, if I remember. um,
That sounds about right, actually. Yeah, I love Dag. He's awesome. Actually,
yeah, I love Deg.
when I was at the office on a Tuesday for that anniversary stream, as I was getting a bus back, ironically of all people, I bumped into Dag, so we ended up
That's
chatting on the
cool.
way home. So
No,
yeah,
that's probably a really awesome person to catch up with.
Dag's
But
great.
yeah, raids was cool. This was definitely at a point where projects have just melted together. I don't. I think
Right,
after raids we did, I worked on no, because Trail 14 indicates it would have been 2014. So maybe I did the dies, Barrow's die, ice, not ice die, the original three dies, in
Barra, Shadow, and Third
14.
Edge.
Yeah, and
So
then
I've gotta hear your side of this story. So
outside of
if you have ever wondered why there is a message when you stun Yakamaru, you can thank this person here. I've
well,
heard many stories for this, so I need you to tell me honestly, how did that message come about, Kyle?
I kept hitting the stumble. Um, yeah, I
So
kept hitting the
if I
stumble
remember
because
how it goes, essentially it was a case of you kept denying that you were stunning Yakamaru, and Chris snuck in a message just
yeah,
so he could see who did it, and you did it.
yeah, yeah. That's pretty much how it went down. Well, with Virago, the bring me down bit, like backtracking a bit. He also did this to Mod Slayer, because when you have to spam click to bring him down, um, Slayer always denied it, and then Chris snuck in a message there, and it was like above her head, which was pretty funny. So I should have learned from that. It was probably Revolution. Uh,
Oh, okay, okay.
it was Revolution. I'll blame it on. Um, but then
Okay, so Raids,
true
obviously,
story.
I mean, I think it's a great story. I love this story every time I hear it. Raids, in my opinion, released the best set of abilities for content we've had so far. With, if you think about how often Corruption Shot and Blast are used, and
Oh
of
yeah.
course
Oh,
Onslaught,
they are all fantastic abilities. They are
I
all
mean even
fantastic
Storm Shards,
abilities.
right? And Shatter, like when
Storm
used correctly, is amazing.
Storm Shards, that was obviously the lesser used one
Yeah.
when it came out, but now people have found its niche, its use. Onslaught is my absolute favorite
Hmm.
ability in RuneScape. It's just obviously there's been points on your stream where I've used it and I'm like, oh, perfectly timed with Sierra's heal, and then I just get nutted. But it's fun. It's fun, and it creates funny moments like that. The amount of Virago like Dardan's Twitch clips where he's using onslaught, and then you hear that panic in the voice when they go oh, and then they end up at death.
So
But yeah, I fully agree that they are the best set of abilities we've released with a piece of content.
so excuse me. Let's go into um, tap. Let's go into what tap did for you. For what it did. So correct me if I'm wrong. The first big project for me that comes to mind that you did in tap was Boss Pet Overrides. Is that correct?
Yes, but so the thing is with boss
Yes.
pet overrides, obviously the majority of the work is from the animator,
But
and
there's
that's
still a system you have to create, right? Because it's completely different for boss pets.
um yes, yeah. There were tweaks needed to be done to the system, but probably looking back, having been a content developer now, the changes to the system are probably pretty easy. Um, but to me, it was mind blowing. And being able to have that little clip at the end of the BTS where it's all the pack yaks walking and then the puff of smoke into the boss pets walking.
Oh my god, that was
That
so good.
was
Yep, I remember that.
yeah, that was like that was cool. And revealing it like that is my favorite way of revealing things.
I mean, that's a common theme. We had it with AOD. We'll get into how you tease that, obviously, in just a little bit. So I feel like, if it's before we get into, obviously, the creation of AOD, as next AOD,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you can stand out from TAP that you enjoyed creating and releasing?
Ooh, the, I can't really remember much besides AOD and boss pet overrides from the early things. I probably did some fixes, some little fixes to pieces of content, but the main big thing was what it was at the time was Tantibus, Tantibus, which was I wanted to make a boss. I wanted to make a 20-man boss. That was the first the first iteration. I was like, yes, let's make a World of Warcraft style boss. And I ended up just getting a Calgarian demon, Calgair the Warmonger, and I just blew him up like 3 times the size. And I just started making mechanics. I say making mechanics. I had to be taught how to use
If
our
if you lot want to see what it looks
scripting
like, I
system.
have images.
Uh-huh.
There you go. This was Tantabus,
Deg.
which he decided on, and you can click on that if you're on Ramen to have a quick little nosy. Because this is an incredible Twitter thread, by the way, which there will be more that he talks about that isn't in this Twitter thread, but it is a fantastic Twitter thread if you want a quick summary of how AOD kind of came
Um,
around behind the scenes. Look at a little smile on his face, I love it. Anyway, sorry, yeah, you were on
yeah,
about Deg.
so obviously I spent a lot of lunch times and tap times and after work times working on this, but I also had a ton of help learning from Deg, Pi, Chriselle. They definitely lent their hand in learning. Um, it was Tantibus at the time, though it wasn't really going to go anywhere just because of my my skill in coding. I didn't do well. I didn't go to uni. I'd never coded anything before. So it was very slow going. Obviously, at lunch times, you can only get so much done. But I was very much always focused on the pretty things. Let's say like the naming or changing up different spot anims. I wasn't always focused on the core mechanics. I would always be, oh, this spot anim looks better, or this spot anim looks better, or this animation or this environment. When realistically, if I had spent all the time focused on mechanics, might have gotten out quicker. But eventually, it went from Tantibus. I think I might have seen a Reddit thread where people were like, "Oh, next hard mode would be cool," and then I just basically went through, found everything. It was originally called in config. It was called Dark Boss. I basically did a Control F for Dark Boss and replaced it with Next to, and then changed the model to Next, and that's how AOD was born. Continued doing it well into I believe 2016. Um, Obviously with Tap, some days I wouldn't be able to do it, or I would move on to a new prototype or a new idea, and then eventually later, I think middle of 2016, is when I was like, you know what, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to finish it, and I'm going to put out a piece of content. So spent a lot of evenings kind of just staying back. It's funny enough, it's a really nice environment to stay back after work, be a bit more laxed, have people around you who are also kind of doing their own thing, and then walking home late and just kind of thinking about what you've just coded or what you've just designed. And a lot of the way I've done things over the years is I will just text myself, or email myself, or send myself a message on instant messaging things. And it would just be quick tidbits, just like make shadows explode, and then when I get into work the next day, I've got a message from myself, and I'll write it up and prototype it the next time I come to do things.
I remember
So a lot
seeing
of
comments on your scripts that you've left yourself in the
uh,
old days about exactly that. So it was either instant message, or you would actually submit something and it would
yeah,
leave a code comment telling you, "Oh, remember to do this," and so on and so forth.
but the issue with tap is not the issue with tap, but the problem with doing things like that in tap is you would get to it 2 weeks later, and then you'd be like, what the fuck does this mean? Like, what was I thinking? But eventually, yeah, just 2016, they gave the go ahead. They said, yep, you can push on with this. I got a budget for outsource, which is um where I got Nex, the Uber Nex model, with the fancy purple glowing hands. Um, and basically, part way through Children of Ma, they turned around and said, spend full time doing this. They hadn't yet announced it to the players, and it was called TFP, which was Next the Four Pillars,
Oh wow, I actually
based off
quite
the
like that.
lore that was around it. And then Mod Osborne and I did some back and forth, and he was trying to rename it from the Four Pillars, and I basically sent him what I can really think of anything besides TFP. But then I sent him an email saying, "How about Angel of Death?" And he was like, "Yes." So that's how Angel of Death the name came to be, and obviously players always shorten things, so it became AOD, which works really nicely. Um, and then I kind of went over to the video team. I was like, "Look, I want to make this epic. I want to release a teaser on New Year's Day, um, to because it was coming out in January." Um, we released the teaser, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, it's Amascat or however you pronounce that god." And I'm just like, shit. But some people kind of heard the voice, so they guessed it was next, and then we announced it. I think a week later in the January behind the scenes, so people were like, "Holy crap, we're getting a boss this month! That's awesome!" And this was where we kind of kicked off the first couple months of the year with all these surprise updates, like the invention tools, and something Gothicsy. I can't remember exactly
Hall of
what it
Memories.
was. Um,
Hall of
but then we
Memories, wasn't it?
had,
Sorry.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Then we brought players in, and I think it was good because it was my first ever update. But we brought players in to play test it, and we recorded the Mod Barnes came in and did some B-roll for the behind the scenes. Oh no, yeah, the actual behind the scenes video for Nex. So we brought players in, we got all the feedback, and then I went upstairs, and it was like it's not enough. Something didn't feel right. So thankfully, at the time, Mod Harrison kind of sat down with me, and we basically added an entirely new phase 2 weeks before release.
Which one was this?
This was the pillars.
Oh wow. Okay.
So all the different pillar effects. We added all that in. You had to go attack the pillars. We had the insta kill in the middle, which was super cool, and it basically just padded out the boss. Unfortunately, when it went live, so there's two stories. When it went live, and the people who were brought into playtest, some of them were telling other people the tactics, so it kind of spoilt that a
Yeah.
little bit. But once it got onto the final phase, which they didn't know about, they just got murked. And I don't think they got the world first broadcast. I can't remember if we did world first
Did we
broadcast.
do a world first for AOD? I'm pretty sure we didn't.
We might not have. I can't
I'm
remember. But
pretty. I think we didn't
um,
only for that reason, if I remember correctly.
yeah. But then also with the behind the scenes, because like we had just finished playtesting, and then Barnes was like, "Oh, we need to let's capture some B-roll." So I quickly set up my account and I used the setup action bar thing that I
Yeah.
made. So obviously the players like analyzed the BTSs,
Yes, they
and then
do.
they looked like there's a camera shot of me over my left shoulder of me playing, and I've got like rack as my first
Oh,
ability,
where is
and
this? I must find
and
this.
then players put it on Reddit. It was like, oh, this is the person making our new boss using rack as his number one ability. And I'm just like, oh, really, really. And there was also there was what was it? Yeah, because we had only announced the prayers, I believe. Yeah, we had only announced the prayers as
Correct.
rewards, and players were going ballistic. They were like, "It's not enough."
Is that your player
And
voice?
that is my thing. They were like, "It's not enough. It's gonna be shit." And like they were obviously naysaying. Um, because we wanted to keep the wand and the orb the secret. I believe it was the first tier 92 dual wields.
That's
No,
correct. Well,
was it?
yeah,
It might
yeah. At
have
the
been the
time, I believe it
first tier
was.
92s. I can't
They were the
remember.
first. They were the first tier 92s.
Yeah, the
Well,
first tier 92s.
well, Telos had came out obviously in 2016, so they were tier 92s. But I believe you're right in the first
Okay,
dual
yeah, yeah.
wield tier
First dual world.
92s.
So, um, in the BTS, because they had given themselves the players that came in, like Justice, PVM, had given himself the new wand, and players saw that and they questioned it on a live stream, and dead straight, I looked at the camera. I was like, "No, yeah, Justice just because he wanted to see what a blood dyed seismic looked like. So obviously we're JMod, so we can spawn things in, and he was using that." And then they were like, "Oh, it's still just the prayers." And then when it went out, they were like, "Holy shit, it's tier 92 wand and orb," and they were going crazy. So it's sometimes better to keep things like that back. And I would like to keep things a secret a lot more. Um, that was definitely my favorite boss release. Let's say because it's not my favorite release.
I'm
Yeah,
just.
it's not my
Bear with me
favorite
a
release.
second. I'm gonna go quiet for just a moment. I need to see if I can find this clip of behind the camera. I need to see this. But while we
Mhm.
do that, I'm just gonna mention a couple of stories that come to mind for me. Now, I remember you coming to me personally when you had your master plan of the teaser for AOD. I remember you coming to speak to me about it, and you said, I've got this video. When like I want to tease this on New Year's Eve. Can we make sure that it gets the promotion it deserves? And rightfully so. Like that's what it deserved for that. Also, something else that comes to mind is in regards to the ones when I did the preview stream for you the day before, on the Friday before the release. You edited the content stream to hide the tier 92s from the
Yeah,
beast menu struct. So when we showed the
yeah.
rewards, that's of course what they saw, and I remember
I,
that
I
clear as
I
day.
went full in. I was this was AOD is my baby. Like she is she was a piece of content that got me to where I am today, inspired me. There was a lot of there's a lot of doubt, just because being in QA, having no coding background,
There it is. It's in the chat.
not
It's in the chat. The
not
image.
I wouldn't say so much doubt, but there was a lot of like this might not be possible. You might be unable to do this. It's not realistic. But that kind of just spurred me on to finish it. And there's a lot of pride that went into that boss, a lot of love, a lot of passion, a lot of time. Um, so I just wanted everything to be perfect, and that's why we went to the lengths we did just to hide this stuff.
Check the image in chat, pal.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
the
it's
exact image.
probably a
Just for
Yeah, it's
just for context for people joining from Wazzy's host, thank you by the way. Rama was telling us a story about how they wanted to get some quick footage for the AOD upcoming boss content back in 2017, and he used the setup action bar button, which led to this, and he got absolutely shredded on Reddit for it. So they were like, "Oh, I can't believe this guy is designing our boss with this ability bar." But yeah, he didn't get a chance to breathe, bless him. Although I believe that was the first time we saw the TN99 curse icons, that image. So there was
it was,
a bit
yeah.
of both, actually.
Originally they were overheads, but then we did some tweaking just
Yeah,
because
talk to me about
it
that,
just
actually.
wasn't right.
Day one, into the first week, they were overheads. They were changed a week after to be what they are now, today. Why
Well,
was that decided then instead of waiting longer?
I honestly don't particularly remember. It just they because they were overheads and because we were in a environment in RuneScape or a time in RuneScape where Soul Split was so viable, there weren't as many healing methods available. People just didn't want to. Actually the jump up from I believe tier 92 turmoil because yeah they were originally tier 95 overheads if I remember correctly. Um, I'm probably thinking about this wrong because it was so long ago. But I believe it wasn't worth the jump up from tier 92 to tier 95, and you're then also losing your overheads. So it was just like, okay, let's move them to tier 99 and let's just make them good. And obviously, look at look at AOD now. A big misconception with AOD is the balancing of the drops. I
It's
don't know.
termed money.
I didn't
I've heard the
actually.
phrase money pigeon, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
money burn.
yeah, money bird.
Um,
Sorry, yeah.
I never balanced the drops. I didn't make a mistake on the first day where I made the codexes 1 in 10 instead of one in
Oh, nice.
profit pigeon. No, yeah, I made that 1 in 10 instead of like one in whatever it is now. But obviously AOD's changed so much over the years that the original drop rates are just nowhere near what they are now. AOD is definitely one of the things I've kept tweaking, improving over the years. Obviously, since I've learned so much since becoming a content developer, um, I've just kind of honed her. But yeah, I still get a lot of slack for the balancing of it and how it's just outrageous money. It's part of a wider issue. Like if we address AOD,
You'd
we
have to
have
address
to
Telos.
or address Telos,
Yep.
and I think we just need to eventually have a point where we sit down and we just go, look, you're not going to like it, but we have to. And like, I think I had a term once, I believe. Nerfs aren't there to destroy fun. It's never our intention. Nerfs are there to preserve interesting decision and preserve the economy. Interesting decisions and preserve the economy.
Hmm.
So hopefully at one point we do kind of fix everything. But yeah, that's AOD for you.
So you had the AOD release. You are actually
Yep.
still technically a QA at this
I
time.
was, yes, senior QA at that point.
So when did the move? Well, first of all, when did you become a content developer? So 2017.
Yes. So after AOD went out, because it was a successful update. Players loved it. I've got a lot of screenshots of my Twitter feeds, and a lot of the time I go back and I look at these screenshots and kind of just realize it's it's a way of grounding myself. I always go back and look at the good, also reflect on the bad. But yeah, so we released in January 31st, 2017. And then Modesty asked me to join content. Helen, Drew all said you should apply for content. And I believe there were various other people who were like, you should do this. And eventually, I believe it was
I
Mo.
told you the same thing because I was like, for me,
Yeah.
just so you can see it from my perspective, I don't know. To me, it felt like that AOD was the personification of making that jump over to that. Like, kind of
Yeah.
the same for me in a sense that, like, Shogun, when he did safe cracking, I thought then was the opportunity for him to become, to
Yes.
be a content developer. I just feel like when you see those updates come out, I think you can just see it on that person.
I believe Shogun. It was Shogun also went through the same kind of thought process that I did. It's self doubt and
Oh yeah,
imposter syndrome. It's like, was it a fluke? Am I ready for this position? Does it feel unfair that there's all these people out there who go to university to study to be this, but I've kind of got Willy Wonka's golden ticket. So
that's beautiful.
it was a couple weeks of thought, self doubt, and then one final person asked me, and I was just like, look, I'll apply, I'll see what happens, and then um, did applied, got the job, did my training, went to Japan for 2 weeks, and then came back and was like, shit, I've forgotten everything. Uh, but you know, the dev team at Jagex, they're super supportive. We have a lot of talent, a lot of talent in that dev team, and everyone was super accommodating, super helpful. But then when you sit down on your first like project as a dev, and you're like, ah, I got to do this full time now, and there's no like taking my time with things. There's no you've got deadlines to hit, and you've got this has to be good, and it's got to follow safe. It's got to be safe code. It's got to be readable code. And AOD, if you actually go back and look at it, it's disgusting. It's disgusting code. But thankfully, I've cleaned up a lot of it now. And sometimes you'll hear me at my desk at work, and I'll just be like, "Oh, Kyle, why?"
I've seen it in Slack a few
But
times. I've never heard you say it, but I've seen it in Slack.
a lot of I think most people who work in programming kind of go back to their first piece of content or whatever it is they do, and they're like, "Holy crap! Like how does this even run?" Um, but yeah, it wasn't honestly long after AOD that I moved to content dev, and then the first thing I did as a content dev was the Lost Grove, which is my all-time
I'm gonna pull you
favorite
back a
RuneScape
second.
project. Wait, did I?
Vitalis Threshold,
I don't want to talk about that.
July 2017. You brought that out
That's
if
a
I
bug.
remember
That's a
correctly.
that's a that's a bug fix. That's a bug
I
fix.
still consider that significant in regard
It's
because it wasn't as simple as a bug fix. Let's be real here.
okay. So here, with the Vitalis threshold, and I'm just gonna type something to you in.
Yep,
I've got to go in 20
that's
minutes.
fine. We'll speed up a
Roughly
bit.
around that. With the Vitalis threshold, I I said no once, and then you know how RuneScape players can sometimes be. If they're passionate about something, you're the target. Their pitchforks are out. They were like, he doesn't want it, whatever. And I kept saying no because I like to stick to my guns. And then eventually I was just like, they're not going to shut up. So we'll do a poll, and only people who are worthy enough to poll,
Yeah,
let's say, um, did it, and then it got through, and they were like, "See, we told you so." Still with their pitchforks out.
it was a close
Um,
poll, though, if I remember correctly. I think it was close. Can't
and
remember.
yeah, because of the way the Virago system is written, the drop system is written, it was pretty difficult for me to do, but managed to figure it out and do it. And then was that really my first? I don't count that as my first piece of
I
content.
mean, from a
It was
quick,
a bug fix.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
but it was a bug fix, but it was a significant project for you based on what you had to do to the boss pet system. I know that for a
yeah,
fact.
yeah,
So I mean, yeah, bug fix technically, but yeah, I would say it was pretty significant. But you are right. And the first big project was, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful pieces of content in this game today, which is Lost Grove. I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
yeah.
So I guess we'll speed this up. I'm going to talk about. I think we might have to do another one of these streams. We can go through other stuff. But
Yeah, if
I
you
think,
want,
yeah, I'm down for it as long as you are.
I'm definitely down for a second one.
So I think for the rest of these 20 minutes, I reckon we may as well cover Lost Grove and Solak in that one area, and then I think
Yeah,
we'll cover.
yeah,
I
and
imagine
then
there'll
we
be more
can.
Solak in the future and so on.
I think you've got some questions from the
Yeah,
tweet,
yeah,
so we
yeah.
can quickly run through them, and then
All right,
um,
Lost Grove. Talk to me about that. A gorgeous piece of content. Environmentally, it's really pretty. So, I mean,
I'm
talk us through it.
I I like. something I've told people over the years, whilst I've been, and I've probably heard it from somewhere, but I might have made it up myself. But I am of the opinion that the strongest NPC in any game is the world. The best character in any game is the world you are in. And I was given the job of basically the brief of create 3 Slayer creatures. Um, but I didn't just want to make 3 Slayer creatures and then expand Curadel's dungeon to have the same blue tint, the same environment. You know, it doesn't feel different. I wanted to start stories. I wanted to have this beautiful place. So I went home and I got loads of Pinterest boards and different fantasy environments and different creatures, or that represents range, and different creatures that represents magic and melee. And basically sat down with my artists and was like, "This is my vision." And then they did sketches and they did a little thing in Blender. And something that's very important is the artists always know better. So you give them the vision you have in your head, and they will always come back to you with something greater. Um, they will always blow your mind, and that's definitely what they did with the Grove. Then once the environment started to come together, these things really fit. We tried new things with the trees. It was we had volumetric
Mm.
lighting introduced to RuneScape, and I was like, let's utilize this tech.
So pretty that area with
Let's
volumetrics.
bring let's bring this stuff in. And then we made it like a dusk with these little wisps glowing around to like make colors pop. Um, and this is I was actually writing about I was writing for Marathel, Erifdor, Fardinen, and the other one, the one that begins with S, I forget his name, the Crappy brother. Um, but I was actually writing their dialogue for them at home, not realizing that it would end up being in the Grove. Um,
Just
so ended up putting that in and sparking off that story and putting in Bob and Teely, and creating this D&D. And when it went out, when it went out, actually Reddit was in, you know, a Reddit rage, as it were. You know how Reddit can go from dark to bad.
mm,
And then this update actually kind of pulled it out of that, and people were like, "Wow, look at this!" Like, and Cinderbanes, they popped off. They were really good on release. And obviously this update had the Chester Bennington tribute,
yes.
which I've been a Linkin Park fan. I remember the first time I found Linkin Park. I remember exactly where I was, exactly what video it was, exactly what I was listening to, and had been a Linkin Park fan ever since. Now, before Chester passed, um, I had resonated really well with the album One More Light. If you haven't listened to that album by Linkin Park, it's their last album, absolutely beautiful. Touches on, it's definitely, you can hear a lot of sorrow in Chester, a lot of sadness. And this was resonating, like, you know, to the start of 2017, despite having positives, was, being completely honest, a dark period of imposter syndrome, um, sadness, lots of things. And this album kind of just connected with me, especially the songs Invisible and One More Light. um Now I was sitting at home when I got the news, when I read the news about Chester, and just I got my vinyl player out and I just put this album on,
I
and
remember you tweeting about it, actually, if I remember correctly.
I yeah, I bawled my eyes out. And then I was talking to, I knew I wanted to put a tribute to him in game. Two of my favorite things. And I put the orb in, and I was talking back and forth with Mod Ryan at the time about what the examine text would be, and we wanted to just keep things subtle. So we just made it flickers flickers, which is a reference the song to the song One More Light. Um, Put it
Link,
out,
link on
not
Twitter as well.
knowing.
if you
Yeah.
remember that.
Not knowing, obviously, we just put it out. It was a very subtle thing. Didn't make a big deal about it, but then it absolutely kind of blew up. And a lot of people who grew up with RuneScape also grew up with Linkin Park. And then it just blew up. It went on. It got a massive amount of upvotes on Reddit. It blew up on Twitter. Mike Shinoda ended up tweeting about it,
Ten
which
thousand
was
likes right now at the time of
yeah,
us talking.
which is crazy. Crazy, yeah. And I think it definitely contributes to why it's my favorite piece, one of my favorite pieces of content. But also the main reason why it's one of my favorite pieces of content is because it showed that despite suffering with imposter syndrome, thinking I'm not good enough, thinking AOD was just a fluke, thinking there are so many people who deserve to be in the position I'm in because they've gone through the work, they've gone through uni, they've learned all this stuff. It just kind of proved to me that I can do it. I have come all this way. This isn't just a fluke. And then from the Grove, it just led on to things like Evil Dave, Evil Dave, which
We
is a
have,
whole different story.
I mean, I feel like based on obviously 20, you said 20 minutes. I think we can. I want to leave Solak for another stream. There's so much we can talk
Yes,
about
let's
for
circle.
Solak.
Let's
There's
let's
other
cover
stuff
up
as
to
well.
Evil Dave, and then we can go through the Q&A questions,
Sure.
and we'll do a
Yeah,
second stream.
that's fine. Evil Dave. So let's
So
take a step back.
Evil Dave was the end of 2017, and it wasn't originally my project. He was given the project. Well, I was put on the project to help out, and then the staff member working on it ended up leaving Jagex. No shade, but the way it was written wasn't the best, and I ended up just saying, you know what, we've got like 3 weeks to go. Fuck it, let's rewrite the entire thing and add some more. So we ended up. I got a lot of support. People were doing dialogue. People were doing little different bits of the quest, and I got to RuneScapeify a quest. So like the White Knight bit at the start, where you throw the bomb in the helmet, and then the boots give the golden beam. I thought, like, at the time, I was like, this is the most RuneScapey thing I've ever done, because it was just a little bit of a laugh. Things like the I don't know how it happened, but the smuggling the hell rats
Oh, good grief for our
through Shanty
careers.
Pass.
Yeah.
Honestly, I must have just been at home and thought the craziest things, went into work the next day and did it. It's one of my favorite parts of the quest, parts of any quest really. It's just wacky, and I think it hit the mark and the humor perfectly right for Evil Dave. It's not one I highlight as if people ask me what I've worked on, I will always lead with AOD, Grove, etc. But Evil Dave I do hold some love for it in the back of my heart, just because of what it was, being able to turn around what it was into what it is. And it's a little bit it's a laugh. It was the first quest I worked on dev wise. And then after that, I believe I started Solak.
And we will leave it there because Solak deserves more than, in my opinion, 5 minutes. But I will read out some stuff I've seen on Twitter. So, I mean, it kind of falls into the Solak question, but it's worth asking. So, if you were to, let's say, do AOD or do Solak again, what's your biggest takeaways from those projects? What have you learned the most?
Ooh, the biggest takeaway I had was probably that pizza on the first day. No. So the biggest takeaways is I'm an idiot. I was blind to realize to think seven man team was the right group size, especially with Solak. After doing a poll myself, and it came out as 3 to 4 man being the prime number, I still pushed ahead and went with 7. Obviously, with both releases, I learn a lot. You can see the improvements design wise going from AOD into Solak. And I'm sure the next boss I probably work on solo, not solo boss, but work on my own, will incorporate learnings from um, AUD and Solak. But definitely the biggest takeaway is don't ever go that high group size again. Keep it low, keep it sweet, but continue to sort of take the learnings from all them.
Well, I mean, you were kind of smart enough to write Solak in such a way that you could scale it, right? So you can
Yeah.
technically realize that vision.
I mean, the scaling had to be written later down the line, but yes, now it works.
I hope we see this scaling update sometimes. I'm not going to ask you when we can expect it, but I just hope that it sees a release. To be fair, like
Yeah,
I think it's
it
going to be
will.
awesome.
It's going. It's
Okay,
going.
awesome. That's good news. Little exclusive on my stream. I'll take it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my line.
we've kind of talked about the general process. Okay, off-topic question, but it's one that was tweeted to us. Ask Ramen what his favorite Taylor Swift song and/or album is, and who was it behind
Uh,
all of the Taylor Swift references in Violet Is Blue.
that was me. I'm a big Swiftie. Let's say. Favorite album is probably 1989, and my favorite song is "Call It What You Want."
Gotcha. Um, so should we tackle? I mean, it's a question in regards to any further plans to offer raids too. I feel like that's more of a RuneScape developer Q&A stream question, if I'm to
Yeah,
be honest with you. So I'm gonna try and stay away from them. Someone asked about aggro switching on P2 ever being fixed, but
yeah, it'll get fixed.
okay. And then Rubik said, strangest bug you've ever found in QA.
I wouldn't be able to put something to that. There's so much. That was so good.
Cool. We have an industry question, which might be nice to answer. As a recent games design graduate, I've obviously been finding it really hard to get a foot in the door. Yep, fair enough. It seems everyone wants at least 6 month experience, etc. I was offered a job at Creative Assembly for QA, but it was just before Christmas, so logistically wasn't the right time. What are your top tips to get an entry level QA with no experience?
Ooh, top tip on that one is don't throw away chances like that ever. Even if it's not the right time, you will figure out a way.
You need the foot in the door.
Yeah, one thing is in life. Another thing I think is important is where there is a will, there is a way. When opportunities present themselves,
Mm,
grab them by whatever limb
agreed.
you want to. Let's say. Getting a foot in the door, be passionate. Show your passion when you're applying for things like these. Um, Involve yourself in communities. Communities are so important for things like this. Like even if it's just gaming with your friends on a Discord server that's popping, you never know who's going to pop in. You never know who you're going to bump into. Be respectful continuously. If you're sitting on Discord and you're absolutely ripping a game to shreds, you never know who is listening.
Mm,
But if you're respectful and you're kind of approaching decisions in games with a thoughtfully, and you're trying to you break down why this design decision was made. Um, if you approach things like that and you're respectful, you're in these communities, you never know what's really going to happen. Apply for things you want. Definitely keep your eye out. Yeah, just go for it. Where there's a will, there's a way.
awesome. Okay, before we end, I'm going to just say a few notes about me personally to you. So I
Okay.
didn't know you suffered from imposter syndrome. I think,
Uh,
like, personally, I warn you. I think you should know that I don't think you need to put yourself down. I know it's easier said than done, but you don't think you have to put yourself down because you've worked your ass off to get to where you are. There's a reason why you became a content developer. You made that route from QA to content developer. There's a reason why you're there. There's a reason why AOD is. I'm pretty sure is the top two bosses played every day in game, maybe top three, I don't know. There's a reason why like you get the praise that you do for what you do with bosses because people want to see more from there. Like there is like a reason for that. So I know it's easier said than done to just say, "Oh no, don't be down on yourself," because everyone is. But I think, and I'm sure the chat will agree with me, like that you are well loved in what you do for a reason, and I hope you continue to do that. And I think
I
it's
appreciate
been
it.
amazing, like to talk with you about this. It's been really awesome, and I've had a blast. I had a blast living with you for 2 years.
Yeah.
I had a
Thank
blast
you.
working with you from the start that I worked into that I joined the Watch as a CM back in 2016, down to the stuff you did. So thank you for that, and we'll catch up
I
again.
appreciate.
We'll catch up
I
again at some
do.
point. You know,
I appreciate the kind words. Thank you very much,
it's
and
fine.
thank you everyone for kind of tuning in. It's been a roller coaster. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
Good.
So don't worry about that. I look forward to 2020. My big goal for it is I'm going to take the designs I've got just kind of sitting there, and I'm going to bring them to light,
Oh,
just the way I did with AOD and Solak. And I think just reigniting something something that's something deep down is it's going to be good. I've wanted to do Marathon Quest for a long time. Um, I'm 2020 is going to be great.
I'm
It's
hyped.
a, it's a,
But
it's
yeah,
good.
as I mentioned, like we've got so much more we haven't really been able to dive into. Obviously, creation of Solak, be a lot more to say there, as well as I kind of want to dive into obviously Anachrony. I know you're involved in the creation of the agility course and so on, but yeah, I think we'll leave it there. I'll get in touch with you at some point in the future. We'll do another one of these and carry it on.
No, I would love to do another one to kind of break into a bit more things and yeah.
Awesome.
I apologies. I didn't get to give you
That's
all the
fine.
time.
Like we have
But
future streams and stuff to do this. It's fine. I'm sure
yeah,
people don't mind. Right. I'm gonna get ready to wrap up. As a note, just to everyone watching, I'm doing another one of these next Saturday. Is actually with former mod Mackay, who's now of course just Mackay. So I will be talking to him next week about old school stuff. So kind of switching things on the game perspective, but still
yeah.
getting some stories about Jagex
Get
and all
Ryan
that
on.
stuff. I'd love to get Ryan on. It's just whenever he's free, I'd love to talk to
Ryan's
Ryan.
got a lot of stories.
Oh, I'm no surprise for that. But yeah, yeah,
Cool.
it's been a blast. So I'm gonna let you go, Ramen. Thank you
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate
so
it.
much, and have yourself a
And
wonderful
thank you for the
night.
chat.
And I will get ready to throw it over to let's have a look who's streaming. Oh, we'll throw it over to Andy B. He's opening 1,000 hard caskets right now, so maybe we can throw some luck his way. So we'll get ready to raid him, and I'll get ready to end it. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, I hope you've enjoyed these. I'll upload this to YouTube in a little bit, and as always, take care and have a good one.